I never thought I'd have to fight for my childhood home at the age of 28. But here I was sitting in the lawyer's office, watching my stepmother Miranda smugly flip through the latest will my father had signed just 2 weeks before his death. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and until 6 months ago, I had what most people would consider a charmed life. I ran a successful small bakery in downtown Boston, lived in a cozy apartment overlooking the harbor, and had a close relationship with my father, despite the tension that had existed since he married Miranda 3 years ago. Dad had always been my rock, especially after Mom died of cancer when I was 12. For 10 years, it was just the two of us in our beautiful Victorian home in Beacon Hill. He threw himself into raising me alone, never missing a school event or dance recital. When I started showing interest in baking, he converted part of our kitchen into a practice space where I could experiment with recipes. Follow your passion, he'd always say, but make sure you have a solid plan. That's exactly what I did. After culinary school, I worked in several high-end bakeries before opening my own place. Dad was my biggest supporter, both emotionally and financially. He helped me secure the loan for my bakery, using our family home as collateral. This house has been in our family for 4 generations, he told me. It should help build the 5th generation's dreams too. Everything changed when Miranda came into our lives. She was 15 years younger than Dad, with perfectly manicured nails and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. They met at a charity gala where she was working as an event coordinator. Within 6 months, they were married. I tried to be happy for them, really tried. Dad deserved love after spending so many years alone. But something about Miranda set off warning bells. Maybe it was the way she casually mentioned how outdated the house was and how they should sell it. Or how she'd make subtle digs about my career choice, always with that plastered-on smile. A bakery is such a quaint business, she'd say during family dinners. But don't you think you should aim higher, Sarah? Your father's position in the financial world could open so many doors. Dad would usually change the subject during these moments. He hated conflict, always had. But I noticed how he started becoming more distant, our weekly dinners becoming monthly, then barely at all. When I did see him, he looked tired, worried. I should have pushed harder to find out what was wrong. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt on a clear day. Pancreatic cancer, already stage 4. 3 months at most, the doctors said. Dad handled it with the same quiet dignity he approached everything in life. But Miranda changed almost overnight. Gone was the subtle manipulation, replaced by open hostility whenever Dad wasn't in the room. I'd come to visit and find her whispering to him, stopping abruptly when I entered. Documents would quickly be shuffled out of sight. But most worrying were the new people suddenly always around. Lawyers I'd never seen before, financial advisors who weren't from Dad's firm. Just getting our affairs in order, Miranda would say sweetly when I asked about them. Your father wants to make sure everything is taken care of. I should have fought harder then, should have demanded answers. But how do you fight when your father is dying? How do you risk making his last days filled with conflict? 2 days before Dad passed away, I finally managed to get a moment alone with him. He was so weak by then, the cancer having ravaged his once strong frame. Sarah, he whispered, gripping my hand with surprising strength, the blue box. Remember the blue box. Before I could ask what he meant, Miranda swooped back into the room, a nurse in tow. Darling, it's time for your medication. Sarah, I think it's best if you go now. Too much excitement isn't good for him. That was the last time I spoke to my father. He slipped into a coma that night and was gone by morning. I didn't even get to say goodbye. The day of the will reading, Miranda arrived at the lawyer's office dressed in head-to-toe designer black, playing the grieving widow to perfection. Her 2 adult children from a previous marriage flanked her like honor guards. Justin and Ashley, both around my age, both eyeing me with barely concealed contempt. Mr. Patterson, Dad's longtime lawyer, looked uncomfortable as he prepared to read the will. I'd known him since childhood. He'd helped Dad set up my college fund, handled the paperwork for my bakery loan. The fact that he wouldn't meet my eyes sent a chill down my spine. This last will and testament, he began, his voice carefully neutral, was signed by Thomas Mitchell 2 weeks before his death. Witnessed by Gerald Conway and Philip Reeves. I didn't recognize either name, but Miranda's slight smile told me she did. As Mr. Patterson read through the document, I felt the floor dropping out from under me. The house, Dad's investment portfolio, even his majority stake in my bakery. Everything was left to Miranda. I was to receive a small monthly allowance to be managed by my loving wife as she sees fit. No, I whispered, this isn't right. Dad would never. Oh, but he did, Miranda cut in smoothly. Your father realized that you needed guidance, structure. He was very concerned about your ability to manage such significant assets. That's a lie. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. Dad helped me build my business. He believed in me. He was clearly not thinking clearly near the end. Miranda finished, her voice dripping with false sympathy. The cancer medications, they can affect judgment. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. There is one other matter. Mr. Mitchell's safety deposit box at First National Bank. He left specific instructions that it should be opened only after the will reading in the presence of all parties. Something flickered across Miranda's face. Uncertainty? Fear? But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Well then, she said, rising gracefully, shall we proceed to the bank? As we walked out of the office, Miranda fell into step beside me. I've been thinking, she said quietly, so only I could hear. That old house really is too big for just me. I'll probably sell it. Unless, of course, you'd like to rent it. At market rate, naturally. I stopped walking, my hands clenching into fists. That house has been in my family for generations. Her smile was pure poison. Not anymore, dear. Not anymore. The drive to the bank was silent, heavy with unspoken tensions. I kept thinking about Dad's last words to me. The blue box. Remember the blue box. What had he been trying to tell me? First National Bank was a grand old building in downtown Boston, all marble columns and brass fixtures. The bank manager led us down to the safety deposit box room, his keys jingling with each step. Mr. Patterson followed, carrying a thin folder. Box 2317, the manager announced, inserting his key. Mr. Patterson used a second key, and the box slid out smoothly. Inside was a single blue metal box, about the size of a shoebox, with a simple combination lock. My heart started racing. This was what Dad had been trying to tell me about. Well, Miranda demanded. Open it. Mr. Patterson shook his head. According to Mr. Mitchell's instructions, only Sarah knows the combination. All eyes turned to me. Miranda's confident smile wavered slightly. I stared at the lock, my mind racing. What would Dad have used? What number would he expect me to remember? Then it hit me. The date we opened my bakery. The day Dad said his investment in my dreams had paid off. With trembling fingers, I turned the dials. 0 to 41 to 7. The lock clicked open. Inside the box, neatly organized, were several envelopes and a USB drive. But what caught everyone's attention was the small voice recorder sitting right on top, with a post-it note in Dad's handwriting. Play me first. I picked up the recorder with shaking hands and pressed play. Dad's voice, weak but clear, filled the small room. My dearest Sarah, if you're hearing this, then things have happened exactly as I feared they would. Dad's voice, though weakened by illness, carried the sharp intelligence I remembered from my childhood. If you're listening to this recording, it means Miranda has done exactly what I suspected she would. Convinced me to sign a new will in my final days. I heard Miranda's sharp intake of breath beside me as Dad continued. What she doesn't know is that I've been documenting everything since the day she first suggested I update my will. The USB drive in this box contains video recordings from hidden cameras in my home office, showing Miranda and her lawyer discussing their plans while they thought I was sedated. You'll also find copies of emails between them, discussing how to manipulate me when the medications made me confused. Miranda lunged for the box, but Mr. Patterson smoothly stepped between us. Please continue playing the recording, Sarah. There's more, Dad's voice went on. In the green envelope, you'll find the real will I signed and had notarized 2 months ago, when I was still clear-headed. Mr. Patterson has the original in his office safe. In the blue envelope is documentation of every cent Miranda has embezzled from my accounts over the past year, including transfers to offshore accounts in her children's names. This is ridiculous, Miranda sputtered, her composure finally cracking. He was delusional at the end. Everyone knows that. But Dad had anticipated this too. I know Miranda will claim I was confused or delusional. That's why the yellow envelope contains sworn statements from my doctors, confirming that I was mentally competent until the final week of my life. The new will she forced me to sign is dated 2 weeks before my death. but hospital records show I was already on heavy sedation by then. The bank manager, who had been watching silently, spoke up. Should I call security, Mr. Patterson? Yes, the lawyer replied calmly. And the police? I believe they'll be very interested in this evidence. Miranda's face had gone from white to mottled red. You can't prove anything. It's all lies from a dying old man, who was a legendary financial investigator known for exposing fraud. I cut in, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Who taught me everything he knew about following money trails and spotting cons? That dad. Justin and Ashley, who had been edging toward the door, found their escape blocked by two burly security guards. Mr. Patterson was already pulling documents from the box, his expression grim as he scanned their contents. The real will, he announced, holding up a thick document, leaves the house and the majority of the estate to Sarah, with reasonable provisions for Miranda's comfort during her lifetime, provided she had not attempted to alter the inheritance, which, given recent events, are now null and void. Dad's voice crackled from the recorder again. Sarah, sweetheart, I'm so sorry for the pain this must be causing you. I wanted to tell you everything, but I needed Miranda to believe she had one. You always said I watched too many spy movies. His weak chuckle turned into a cough. The house is yours, as it should be. The bakery is yours. Everything I worked for is yours. And Miranda. We all turned to look at her as Dad's voice hardened. Miranda, if you're hearing this, remember what I told you the day we met. That the most dangerous mistake a con artist can make is underestimating their mark. Consider this your final lesson. The next hour passed in a blur of police statements and formal accusations. Miranda, Justin, and Ashley were led away in handcuffs, charged with fraud, coercion, and attempted theft. I sat in a comfortable chair provided by the bank manager, clutching the blue box that contained my father's last gift to me. Not just the inheritance, but the proof of his trust and love. Mr. Patterson sat beside me, his familiar presence comforting. Your father came to me 2 months ago, he explained softly. He discovered Miranda's attempts to access his accounts, found evidence of her past cons. Instead of confronting her, he decided to play along, gather evidence. He said you taught him that, about keeping detailed records. I laughed through my tears. When I was setting up the bakery, I made him help me create spreadsheets for everything. He always said I was better at documentation than he was. He was so proud of you, Sarah. Every time you achieved something new with the bakery, he'd come into my office just to brag about his amazing daughter. The aftermath of Miranda's arrest played out over the following months. The evidence Dad had gathered was overwhelming, not just of her attempt to steal his estate, but of similar cons she pulled in other states. She and her children had targeted wealthy, terminally ill men before, but never anyone as thorough as my father. The day I moved back into our family home was bittersweet. Every room held memories. Dad teaching me to dance in the living room, our epic baking fails in the kitchen, the countless nights we'd spent in his study as he taught me about business and finance. I found one last surprise in his study, a letter tucked inside his favorite first edition Sherlock Holmes book. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind he used for special occasions. My dearest Sarah, it began, if you're reading this, then our plan worked. I know it must have hurt, watching Miranda try to take everything we built together. But you taught me something important with your bakery, that sometimes you have to be patient, let things develop properly, like a good sourdough starter. I laughed out loud at the baking reference. Classic Dad. I'm leaving you more than just the house and the business, Sarah. I'm leaving you the knowledge that you're stronger than anyone who tries to deceive you, smarter than those who underestimate you, just like your mother was. The letter went on, sharing memories, dreams, and one final surprise. He'd already paid off my bakery loan in full. Consider it my last investment in your dreams, he wrote. 6 months after Miranda's arrest, my bakery was thriving. I'd expanded into the space next door, adding a cafe section where people could sit and enjoy their pastries. The walls were decorated with photos of Dad and me throughout the years, and one special picture, Mom and Dad on their wedding day, standing in front of our Victorian home. Every morning, as I unlock the bakery's front door, I think about everything Dad taught me. About business, yes. But more importantly about love, trust, and the power of playing the long game when fighting injustice. Miranda and her children eventually took plea deals, avoiding longer sentences in exchange for returning all the money they'd stolen from their previous victims. I testified at the sentencing, not for revenge, but to ensure the judge understood the pattern of their crimes. They didn't just steal money, I told the court. They tried to steal the legacy of love between parents and children. They tried to corrupt the trust that makes families strong. The Victorian house is full of life again now. I host weekly dinner parties for friends, baking my way through Mom's old recipe box that Dad had carefully preserved. Sometimes Mr. Patterson joins us, sharing stories about Dad that make me laugh and cry in equal measure. Last week, while cleaning out an old closet, I found Dad's collection of spy novels. Tucked inside one was a bookmark with his favorite quote, "The best revenge is living well." Below it, in his neat handwriting, he added, "And having better evidence." I keep that bookmark in my office at the bakery now, a reminder that love doesn't just give us strength, it gives us wisdom, patience, and sometimes the perfect recipe for justice. They say you can't choose your family, but that's not entirely true. Every day, we choose how to honor the family we've lost, how to protect what they built, and how to carry their legacy forward. Dad chose to protect me one last time, using the very skills I had learned from him. And I choose to remember him not just through photographs or inheritance, but through every loaf of bread I bake, every business lesson I share, and every moment I spend in the home he fought so cleverly to preserve for me. As for Miranda's designer clothes and expensive jewelry, they were auctioned off to help repay her victims. I kept only one thing, the fake Cartier watch she always wore. It sits in my office drawer, a reminder that some things in life, like some people, aren't what they appear to be. But others, like my father's love and trust in me, are more genuine than any diamond. Every evening, as I close up the bakery and walk home to our beautiful Victorian house, I think about Dad's final lessons, about patience, preparation, and the power of believing in yourself. Sometimes I swear I can hear him chuckling, saying, "Follow your passion, but make sure you have a solid plan." I did, Dad. I did. Money can't buy happiness, but it can certainly buy revenge, especially when your toxic family doesn't know you're worth $500 million. I learned that lesson the hard way last month when my own sister and parents tried to destroy my career, not realizing they were actually attacking the company's owner. I'm Jennifer Zhang, though most people know me as Jen. On paper, I'm the newly appointed Chief Operations Officer of Palmer Technologies, a mid-sized software company in Austin. What my family doesn't know is that 3 months ago, I became the majority shareholder through a series of quiet acquisitions using a holding company. The story of how we got here starts 15 years ago, when I was a scholarship student at MIT while my younger sister Angela attended UCLA on our parents' dime. "Angela needs the support," Mom would say. "You've always been so independent, Jen." Independent wasn't the word for it. I worked 3 jobs to cover expenses, coded freelance projects until my eyes burned, and lived on ramen while Angela posted Instagram stories from Cabo's spring break. But I had a plan. Technology was my passion, and I knew the sacrifices would pay off. They did, spectacularly. By 27, I'd founded and sold 2 successful startups, though I kept that information quiet. On paper, I looked like a moderately successful tech executive. In reality, I had hundreds of millions carefully invested through various shells and holding companies. Why the secrecy? Because I'd watched money destroy too many families. I saw how my parents' blatant favoritism toward Angela had intensified when they thought I was struggling financially. Their pride in her modest success as a marketing manager was matched only by their condescension toward my risky tech career. "You should let Angela help you find a stable corporate job," Mom would suggest during family dinners. "She has such good connections." I let them believe what they wanted. Let them think I needed their approval, their connections, their validation. Meanwhile, I was building something bigger than they could imagine. 3 months ago, I orchestrated my masterpiece, the quiet acquisition of Palmer Technologies, where I've been working as a VP for the past year. The company was undervalued but had incredible potential. Using a maze of holding companies and investment vehicles, I purchased a controlling interest without anyone realizing the true buyer's identity. The board appointed me COO as part of the transition, not realizing they were actually hiring their new owner. I took the role because I genuinely loved the company and wanted to help lead its transformation from the inside. Angela's reaction to my promotion was predictable. "Must be nice to finally catch a break," she said during our monthly family dinner. "Though I hope you're not in over your head. Corporate leadership is very different from just writing code." Mom and Dad exchanged concerned looks. Maybe Angela could mentor you, Mom suggested. She's been in corporate management for years. I bit back a laugh, thinking about the acquisition documents sitting in my safe. I'll keep that in mind. But Angela wasn't content with condescension. My promotion had disrupted her carefully maintained narrative of superiority. She'd always been the successful one, the daughter with the prestigious corporate career, while I was just the nerdy coder who couldn't climb the ladder. The first sign of trouble came when Angela began showing up at Palmer Technologies for lunch with mid-level managers, casually gathering information about my role and responsibilities. I watched through my office window as she charmed her way through the departments, playing the concerned sister worried about my ability to handle such a big job. Then came the anonymous emails to HR, suggesting I had faked my credentials. Those were easily disproven, but the intent was clear. Someone was trying to undermine me. "I'm just looking out for you," Angela said sweetly when I confronted her. "Everyone knows tech companies promote women too quickly these days because of diversity quotas. I'd hate to see you fail publicly." I let her play her games, curious to see how far she would go. The answer came yesterday in the form of a thick envelope delivered to the board of directors. Inside was a meticulously crafted dossier of evidence suggesting I had been embezzling company funds, falsifying reports, and engaging in insider trading. Bank statements had been expertly doctored, emails cleverly fabricated, all pointing to massive fraud orchestrated by the new COO. The board called an emergency meeting for Friday morning. Angela must have learned about it through her network of lunch companions, because last night she could barely contain her glee. "The board wants me there tomorrow," she announced at dinner, eyes glittering. "Apparently there's going to be a major leadership change. Mom, Dad, you should come too. For moral support." They agreed eagerly, though neither bothered to ask why I wasn't invited to this meeting about my home job. What my family doesn't know is that I spent the night in my home office, preparing my own dossier. Every lunch meeting Angela had conducted with my employees, every piece of personal information she had gathered under false pretenses, every manipulative email she had sent trying to gather dirt, all of it meticulously documented. More importantly, I finally prepared the documents revealing Palmer Technologies' true ownership structure. Tomorrow morning, my family will learn exactly who they've been trying to destroy. I should be angry. I should be hurt that my own sister would try to ruin my career, that my parents would happily attend my professional execution. But sitting here in my home office, surrounded by evidence of their betrayal, I feel oddly calm. You see, Angela's scheming has given me something invaluable. A perfect opportunity to address not just her sabotage, but decades of family dysfunction. Sometimes the most effective lessons come from letting people believe they've won, right up until the moment they realize they've lost everything. The board meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. My family will be there expecting to watch my downfall. Instead, they're about to learn why you should never underestimate the quiet one who was just a coder. The stage is set, the players are in position. And for once, I'm looking forward to a board meeting. I arrived at the Palmer Technologies office early Friday morning, wanting to observe my family's grand entrance. Right on schedule, they swept into the lobby at 8:45 a.m. Angela in her power suit, Mom and Dad dressed for what they assumed would be their successful daughter's triumph over their failing one. "Is the board ready for us?" Angela asked the receptionist, practically vibrating with anticipation. Her smile reminded me of when we were kids, and she'd secretly broken my science fair project the night before judging. I watched through my office window as they were escorted to the main conference room. Board members filed in shortly after, looking appropriately grave. Everyone had received my instruction email about playing along with the initial proceedings. At precisely 9 a.m., I wheeled my chair back from my desk and headed for the conference room. Time to start the show. Marcus Chen, our board chairman, was mid-sentence when I entered. "These allegations against Ms. Zhang are extremely serious." "Sorry I'm late," I announced cheerfully, taking my usual seat. Angela's head snapped up, her perfect smile faltering. "Jen, this is a closed board meeting. You weren't invited," she hissed, shooting panicked looks at the board members. I smiled serenely. "Actually, I invited myself. You see, it's somewhat difficult to have a board meeting without the owner of the company." The silence that followed was absolutely perfect. Angela's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Mom's carefully styled hair seemed to deflate along with her smug expression. Dad's face turned an interesting shade of purple. What are you talking about? Angela finally managed. Palmer Technologies is owned by shareholders. It's a public company. Correction, I said, nodding to my assistant who began distributing folders to everyone present. Palmer Technologies was a public company until 3 months ago, when it was purchased by Zhang Innovations Holdings. Would you like to guess who owns that? I watched realization dawn on the board members' faces as they reviewed the documents. Many of them had wondered about the recent buyout but hadn't known the identity of their new owner. This is ridiculous, Angela sputtered. You can't afford? You're just a coder? I finished for her. Yes, you've mentioned that. Repeatedly, along with many other things actually. Sharon, could you play the recordings please? My assistant activated the conference room's audio system. Angela's voice filled the room. Look, between us, my sister's not qualified for this position. I'm worried she'll embarrass the company. Have you noticed any unusual transactions in her department? Recording after recording played. Every lunch meeting, every manipulative conversation, every attempt to gather dirt on me. Angela sank lower in her chair as her careful scheme unraveled. And then there's this, I continued, holding up the envelope she'd sent to the board. Falsified evidence of financial crimes, forged documents, attempted corporate sabotage. Tell me, Angela, did you really think no one would verify these allegations before acting on them? I was trying to protect the company, she burst out. You're not qualified for this role. You've never been the successful one, the smart one. I'm the one who deserves to be exposed for corporate espionage. I finished quietly, to be reported to the SEC for attempting to manipulate stock prices with false allegations. To lose your own job when your employer learns about your actions. The blood drained from her face. Mom finally found her voice. Surely you wouldn't do that to your own sister. Like she wouldn't try to destroy my career? I turned to face my parents. Like you wouldn't come here to watch it happen. We were just supporting Angela. Dad protested weakly. She said you were in trouble. No, I cut him off. You were doing what you've always done. Assuming Angela knows best, that she has my interests at heart, that her success somehow makes her more worthy of support and respect. I stood up, addressing the board. I apologize for the theatrical nature of this meeting, but I needed everyone to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Ms. Zhang, Angela, has committed several serious crimes in her attempt to sabotage my position here. Her actions have exposed this company to potential legal and regulatory risks. Marcus Chen cleared his throat. What would you like us to do, Ms. Zhang? I sat back down, folding my hands on the table. First, I want it on record that the board has reviewed and dismissed all allegations against me as categorically false. Second, I want a formal letter sent to Angela's employer detailing her actions, including the recordings and falsified documents. Her attempts at corporate espionage should be part of her professional record. You can't, Angela shrieked. You'll destroy my career. Like you tried to destroy mine? I asked mildly. The difference is, these are real documents showing real actions you actually took, not fabricated evidence designed to frame an innocent person. I turned back to the board. I also want it noted that Angela Zhang and our parents are permanently banned from Palmer Technologies property. Any attempt to contact our employees or interfere with company business will result in immediate legal action. Jen, please, Mom was crying now, her mascara running. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family supports each other. Family celebrates success instead of trying to destroy it. Family doesn't forge documents to get someone fired because their ego can't handle someone else's achievements. I pulled out one final document, a copy of my first company's acquisition agreement from 5 years ago. Do you want to know the real irony? I've been more successful than Angela for years. I sold my first company for $50 million when I was 27. My second sold for $180 million 2 years later. I could have bought that country club membership you wanted so badly, Dad. Could have funded those luxury vacations you were always taking Angela on, Mom. They stared at the document, at the numbers that shattered their carefully maintained family mythology. But I wanted to succeed on my own terms, I continued. I wanted to build something meaningful, not just buy status. I kept my wealth quiet because I wanted to see who would support me when they thought I was struggling. You failed that test spectacularly. Angela had started crying. But they weren't her usual manipulative tears. She looked truly broken, perhaps for the first time in her life. "You're firing me from my job," she whispered. "No," I replied. "I'm letting your own actions fire you, the same way you tried to do to me. The difference is you actually did what you're being accused of." I stood up again, gathering my papers. "The board meeting is adjourned. Marcus, please ensure all the documentation is properly filed. Mom, Dad, Angela, security will escort you out." "Wait," Angela called as I reached the door. "Please, I'm sorry, I was jealous. I couldn't stand that you were finally doing better than me. We can fix this, can't we? We're still family." I turned back one last time. "You know what the difference is between us, Angela. When you thought I was struggling, you tried to knock me down further. When I succeeded, I kept it quiet to avoid making you feel inferior. That's the difference between real success and whatever game you've been playing." The next few weeks were interesting. Angela did lose her job when her employer learned of her corporate espionage attempt. Mom and Dad's friends at the country club suddenly developed a new respect for their other daughter when the truth about my success leaked out. I received multiple tearful voicemails, written apologies, even a letter from Angela's therapist saying she was doing the work to understand her toxic behavior. I archived them all without responding. 3 months later, I was working late when my assistant announced an unexpected visitor. It was Angela, looking very different from the polished corporate climber who tried to destroy me. She'd lost weight, cut her hair short, and wore simple business casual attire instead of her usual designer suits. "I'm not staying," she said quickly, holding up a hand when I started to speak. I need to say something." She placed a thick envelope on my desk. "This is every password, every contact, every piece of information I gathered while trying to sabotage you. I'm also sending a formal apology to the board and my former employer, taking full responsibility for my actions." I studied her carefully. "Why now?" "Because you were right," she said quietly, "about everything. I've spent my whole life playing a role, the successful daughter, the corporate star. I tried to destroy you because you achieved real success, on your own terms. It terrified me because it showed how hollow my life was." She turned to leave, then paused. "I'm starting over. Small company, entry-level position, earning things for real this time. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you taught me more by letting me fail than our parents ever did by helping me succeed." I waited until she reached the door. "Angela?" She turned back, hope flickering across her face. "Send me your resume in a year," I said. "Not for a leadership role. But if you're serious about earning things properly, well, we're always looking for people willing to work their way up." A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she nodded briskly and left without another word. 6 months later, Palmer Technologies has grown beyond even my ambitious projections. We're developing groundbreaking software, creating jobs, and building something meaningful. Mom and Dad still send occasional messages, usually when they need something or want to show off to their friends. I maintain polite but distant contact, no longer seeking the approval I once desperately wanted. The corner office they thought I didn't deserve has a perfect view of the Austin skyline. Sometimes in the evening, I watch the sunset and think about success, family, and the price of being underestimated. Angela sent me a Christmas card last week. No manipulative message, no asking for help. Just a simple note: "You succeeded not because of our family's support, but despite its absence. I'm finally learning to do the same." Maybe that's the real revenge, not destroying those who hurt us, but building something so magnificent that their attempts to tear us down become footnotes in our success story. The quiet one, the coder, the sister they underestimated. Turns out I was the successful one all along. They just couldn't see it until it was too late.